Nate Helms was on the Central Mountain baseball team from 2021 to 2023 on varsity, and I had the pleasure of coaching him for 3 years. His first year was a sophomore year, 10th grade. In 2021, we made a run to the Final Four in the state. Nate made varsity as a sophomore. He was catching bullpens a lot, getting pitchers warmed up, trying to get on the field. He made a couple starts at third base and DH'd. When he got his opportunities as a sophomore, he made the most of it. He had a total of 6 hits and just hit around 275. But Nate was a worker. He was eager to learn and was willing to do whatever he could to get on the field. He was a great teammate, and you could just tell early on he was invested in the team. He was always up, energy, cheering guys on, doing whatever he could to help out. So to go along with his sophomore year, you could tell he liked to get after it and put in work on his craft. He was always asking for, Coach, come do receiving drills with me. Come help me work with blocking, my footwork. He wanted videos of him making throws down the second, third, and even the first. So you could tell early on that he was invested in getting better day by day and wanting to improve on where he was. And this was just starting to scratch the surface of Nate and his development. Even before the season that year, we had online workouts because of COVID, so we couldn't really meet in the fitness centers, and Nate would log on Zoom and we called it JTF, Gym Time Fitness. He would do that 2 days a week. So even then, he was already putting in time. So Nate's junior year, he kind of grabbed the bull by the horns, and we lost a lot of guys from the 2021 senior class. Nate came in, battled, and earned the starting catching spot, and he caught every game. And Nate had an outstanding year. But from the start, you could tell that Nate was going to be one of the leaders. He was very vocal. He was very confident. And he was also demanding of the pitching staff, always trying to hold the pitchers accountable, communicate with them well, work with them to make them better and push them to be the best that they could be. It was never, oh man, I don't want to catch a bullpen. He was always eager to get after it and learn to see what his guys had. And that's a huge thing for a catcher because he's one of your vocal leaders on the field. He's one of the guys that has to be your staple. And he's someone that everybody's going to look to because we run plays through, and his voice is going to be heard almost every play. So a couple things that Nate improved on from his sophomore year to junior year that you could noticeably see was his size and strength. He definitely got bigger, stronger. His quickness laterally, I would say, improved. His front step, whenever he would go to turn to make a throw to second, I would say got quicker, along with his arm strength improved as well. His throws down to second and third gradually improved from his sophomore year to his junior year on that aspect of catching. Blocking, definitely another step in the right direction. His junior year got stronger. Forearm strength was very well for framing and holding pitches, along with his wrist strength, which are two things that catchers like to have. You could tell there was an improvement there on holding the pitch and trying to get calls for his pitchers and get a strike for the umpire. So Nate's junior year hitting, he was actually our leadoff hitter, which you don't see too many catchers lead off usually. And Nate really set the tone for us as a team, getting things started, getting on base. He grew into that role. He didn't start as the leadoff. He was more in the 5-hole to start the year, but then he was getting on base and just taking great at-bats to see pitches, and he put the ball in play a lot. Great 2-strike hitter. He would foul pitches off and do what he had to put the ball in play. If there was a runner on third, if there was a runner on second, hit it to the right side. Like, those are little things that might not show in the stat sheet, but he would battle and fight. Nate was third in the team in average, just around 340. He was second in the team in hits. And then he was also tied for first in the team in doubles. So you were seeing some power, gap shots, and Nate was sprinting out of the box to get two because he knew he wasn't the fastest guy in the world, but he would always hustle and sprint out of the box. And so you could tell Nate's hard work from square one was definitely paying off in his junior year. He was the starting catcher. He was the leadoff. He was demanding of the pitching staff. We had 18 wins after the year before. We had a Final Four run, and some teams probably and coaches in the area, actually, they didn't think we were going to have as good a team as we did. And Nate was one of our leaders, and that comes from him being confident and from him setting the tone and putting time in the offseason. Square one, you could tell the results showed. I mean, it was a long season. We'd have 3 games a week. Nate's body held up. He was catching 3 games a week at a time. He put that time in the offseason to prepare himself for the regular season. Not only that, summer ball, he was on a traveling team, and he played Legion, and he would always catch, so he was getting after it, and the work he did before the season prepared him for all the summer. So Nate earned 2 honors as a junior. He was first team Hack 1, which is the conference we play in. He was voted first team catcher, and then he was also voted first team catcher in the Williamsport Sun Gazette by Chris Doc Massey for first team catcher in the area. So 2 nice accolades for Nate, and for him to use his hard work in the offseason at Square One, developing his skills from his footwork, from his strength, from his mobility, from his body being able to stand a task, to be able to stay at that top level all season long, and just keep going, keep improving, keep getting better. His attention to detail was great. He would always focus on the team aspect rather than himself, but along with that, you always have individual goals, and it was great to see him achieve 2 of those, along with we repeated as district champs, so that was awesome. His fast twitch muscles definitely made a huge improvement from his sophomore year to his junior year in the aspect of him getting rid of the ball quicker. His footwork to second and third base, along with his arm strength, and even in his swing, you could tell it. Just little things, his leg strength, his hip mobility is one huge for catchers. That was something that we tried to make sure he stayed loose and stretching on as you're down squatting most of the time for catching. So those are things that we tried to make sure he was good on. Stretching, band work, mobility, just staying loose, not to be as tight because it can be a long week sometimes. So 2023 was Nate's senior year, and that team actually broke the record for most wins in the season with 21. We won another district championship, and we won the Heartland as Hack 1 champs. We only had 1 loss, along with going undefeated at home for Nate and his team's senior year. So great accomplishment for the guys and the team in general. Nate's senior year, a lot of the same things. Great leader, came out the gate, set the tone in hitting league, preseason workouts, being a vocal leader, being confident, knowing his ability, knowing that holding guys accountable, and that comes from all the work you put in from, freshman, sophomore year, off-season training, just knowing what the staple is, knowing what the culture is, the environment, holding guys accountable, being disciplined, communicating. Those are things you all gain from just working out. Nate isn't shy on confidence, anybody that knows him, but I think something that also helped him is his development from Square One and working out, seeing his body and improvement. Ryan does a great job of motivating his athletes, putting up a board on guys that are leading in exercises with weight and strength, how many reps they get, whatever the exercise. And there for a while, Nate was at the top of the list, and that goes from him pushing himself in the off season. And Nate's senior year, he actually took on a big jump in the fall. He decided to play football. So he went out his senior year, but he also still found time to work out, getting after it, prioritizing. That's something that was important to him. He didn't let football slow him down, but also, he gained some experience, gained some conditioning, gained some more footwork, and took a leap of faith to go out and play his senior year. So Nate's senior year, he had some unfortunate luck sometimes in baseball, as we call it. He hit a bunch of balls on the screws, just right at guys. I know one game that sticks out for sure is Belfont. He started off the game with a hard hit. He was 1 for 1, and then his next 3 at bats, he just hit line drives right to guys and hard hit balls. And sometimes that happens, And unfortunately, it doesn't show up on the stat sheet, but you do everything right and you hit balls right to guys and you get out. So his average might not have been as high. I think it was at 300 his senior year, but he was hitting balls hard, squaring them up, hitting them right at guys, and maybe those 60, 70 at-bats in high school, he didn't find holes, but then in the summer league teams, maybe he was finding more holes. That's just the way the baseball gods go. But he was definitely hitting the ball harder on more of a line from his sophomore year to senior year, so you could definitely tell the strength was there. Nate's foot speed continued to grow little by little. As a catcher, you have to back up first base whenever there's nobody on in the infield, and grounders hit to the infielders. Nate would get down there, back up first base. At Mill Hall, we don't have a fence, so you have to stop the ball from going out of play so the base runner doesn't get second base. A couple times Nate was there to do that. And along with that, with rundowns, I know there was a few games where we would get a runner stuck in a rundown and Nate would tag the guy. So that's just a little gain for him on his belt that he was able to get a base runner out with all of his catcher's gear and on and whatnot. So to wrap up and finish on Nate, for his career, I would sum him up as a worker, a guy that likes to get after it, grit, do some things that maybe everybody else wouldn't like to do, but he's going to do it to make himself better and to make the team better, which is the overall aspect, make the team better. Nate would put the team before him a lot of the times. I would say without a doubt he was definitely a leader, captain his 2 years that he started, and a lot of guys looked to him. He set the tone. He was a great example setter and vocal leader. Command the pitching staff awesome for the 2 years that he was catching, which last year we had a great successful year, and he had a lot of guys he had to get in check, be on the same wavelength with. So kudos to him for all his hard work and grit on that. And it was great just to see him grow from his sophomore year to senior year. Big leaps all around in his game. I don't think that would have been possible without the work of Square One and with Ryan. Being confident in your ability as an athlete is huge. It speaks to your mental game, which is huge because it gives you confidence. And when you're confident, you just go out and whatever sport it is, you don't think about things, you just react and you be an athlete. Less thinking, more doing, and that was Nate to a T. Sometimes he would get himself in trouble if he was overthinking, but that happens at times. As an athlete, a high school kid, you always want to do so well, and sometimes you start doubting yourself, but you hone yourself back in, take a deep breath, take a couple extra cuts, whatever you need to do to get back on track. And, I think the work that you put in the off season makes you confident in your ability going into the season. And you could tell Nate grew a lot from the time he was a sophomore to senior in his game.